Hello, lovely people. I think everything's working. I think everything's set up here. Right out of the gate, we got a nice little email beep. Let me shut that down. Um, ba, ba, ba. I hope everyone is good. It's been about a month since I've been streaming. A lot has been happening behind the scenes. The My latest RPG book, The Prayer's Handbook, just released digitally today. The last month I've spent just adding so much to that book, a silly amount. I have I'll be able to put it on the screen here in a little while. If anyone's got any questions about it, we could talk about it. But walk through a little bit of it for anyone who wants to catch the replay later on. But it's been a crazy month. A ton of work has been done, putting in extra effort into the latest book. The Prayer's Handbook I'd hoped to have out in January. Worst case scenario, middle of February, so I could launch Bibblemancy, the next one, in February during Zine Quest, but that kind of blew up. I just spent so much time adding monsters and adding more illustrations. One of the ones that was one of the last ones I had to do was this fella here. Thanks so much, Delmont. So good to see you. I had hoped to come back with a whole new everything around us here. I was hoping to redecorate. That just never happened. All the time has been spent on the Prayer's Handbook. I did squeeze a little bit of extra stuff in from, whenever I needed to. That's one of the things, whenever I hit like a writer's block or a creative block, you switch gears because there's always something else you could be working on. And so I would switch gears and work on like the sculpt for Nibblemancy, the next project. Or one more bit of tech. Today was I'm not sure, are we streaming properly on the YouTubes? I can't tell, but even today, releasing the PDF version of the Prayer's Handbook, and the response so far has been very kind. Eric, good to see you. And that's exactly the sort of welcome I I deserve. Yeah, oh yeah, that's what this is. This is I'm big time. But I'm distributing out the PDF today, and the response from people has been wonderful. But of course, one of the integrations I have on my website, the way I set up my PDF delivery, Marcos, lovely to see you. One of the integrations I have on my website is, and one of the ways I deliver my PDFs is I have them watermarked on my own website, which is a bit of a pain in the butt to set up because it's not a built-in function of a web server or WooCommerce or anything like that. You have to install a separate bit of software which has a dependency that the server has to already have. So if the server you're on doesn't already have that software, then the hosts have to install a little bit just for you. And usually, and I'm sure this is a shared environment. I'm sure not the entire box isn't dedicated to little old me. But to set up that software to watermark the PDFs is the only digital rights management I really like. I don't like password protected stuff. What I do like though is having it like this book belongs to. To me, I feel like that's what these should be. If you're going to have a PDF of any kind, that's what you should have. Even Drive-Thru RPG does the same thing. Because that way you can still share it with a friend. But it discourages you from necessarily putting it out onto a server somewhere or uploading it to social media or something. Because I want to discourage people from sharing it willy-nilly, but you should be able to share it with your friends. Because all the comics I read as a kid and all the D&D books, all the gaming books I ever saw as a kid were somebody else's that they shared with me. So I want to keep that going. That seems right. Books should be shared. So there's nothing that prohibits somebody from sharing it, but there's a little bit of ownership to it. And I like the idea of this book belongs to. That feels like one of the old, what do they call those? Little book plates of olden times. They tell them absolutely a blast. So I send out the PDF to everybody. And I don't send out all the PDFs because some people ordered the old books like Intoximancy or Death Dealing or anything else. That just puts a big strain on the server because for every time there's a watermarked book, essentially a copy of the PDF has to be created watermarked and put on the server for you to download. It's not like it's created on the fly in the ether. and then it has to sit there for X number of days depending on settings. And so those can fill up a server pretty quickly. So I've got a pretty good host, and I've got a pretty good allotment of space there, but I can't imagine what the storage requirements over Drive-Thru RPG are like. One of the things I'm working on, and I don't quite have an answer for it yet, is a way to update a PDF with, let's say, errata, or there's like 2 type corrections I want to make in Toximancy and 1 in Death Dealing, and who knows how many in the Prayer's Handbook. But I'd like to be able to make those corrections and have the system, ping everybody who previously ordered it. That happens on itch.io, and that happens on Drive-Thru RPG. I'd like the system to be able to tell everybody, hey, there's a new version, go in here and basically regenerate your access key and get the file again. So that's something else I have to set up. But today I'm sending out the PDF to everybody, and that's of course when MailerLite, the email service I use, decided to roll out a new version of their plugin. And so one of the things I have set up is, one of the perks of hosting the PDFs myself is that when you're downloading it, there's an opt-in box that says, would you like to sign up for my mailing list? And yes, I asked people during the BackerKit survey and all that stuff, but I give people a chance here, do you want to sign up for my mailing list? Of course, all that fell apart. Thankfully, it didn't get in the way of anybody downloading their books. People have been downloading it all day, and the response has been very kind. It hasn't been like it hasn't been like I'm getting a ton of letters, but I get the quick notes and thumbs ups and things like that. So it's very nice. So anyway, as the big thanks to the folks in the book, there's the huge page full of Patreon supporters. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And also on the inside, page 2 of the book is thanks to the proofreaders who did a wonderful job and caught a lot of things, which I really appreciate. And so today we got some stuff to work on. I was going to walk through Meta Domain and talk about it from cover to cover, and but also work on this sculpt. This is going to be over there is going to be is the source. Well, basically it became the reference for the endgamer inside the book, which is the last monster that was added, last creature that was added, a corrupted metadomain cleric. And so like with many of the other illustrations, I sculpt reference, then light it, and then paint on top of it and exaggerate it and do all the things that, there's a lot of expression that I can't make in clay, right? Everything is a single tone, and so things like dark circles under the eyes and rosiness of lips and a little extra sheen on the nose and things like that, tons of stuff like that. Also, the 3D modeling requires things to be chunky, so like the cape is very chunky, so that it can be printed. And this is a 3-up size model that was printed off of an FDM printer, and I have a wee one here. I'm not sure if he'll get into focus or not. My giant head is interrupting, but actual size came out of an FDM printer pretty well. And this was with a fairly large nozzle. There's one that's half that size. I bet you can do finer work. So Fat Dragon Games, that YouTube channel, would probably tell me how to make a much cleaner print. But it printed well. It's got a very wide base, a bit like a tree trunk. One of the things I do for the larger prints, though, they are sliced in half. And then they are glued together. One of the things I don't want to have is there's a thing called there's tree supports, which kind of come up like these big, like trees, like vines that are reaching out from the platform of the printer. And what they do is they support these overhangs, all these things which are just kind of, they don't have anything below them. The 3D printers essentially just relies on gravity to print everything, from the ground up. And if there isn't anything underneath something to support it, that's what these supports are. The plastic would just go everywhere. One of the things that I don't want is I don't want the tree supports to be connecting to the figure twice, to the print twice, meaning that a support can run from the figure to another point on the figure as a means of support, or you can have print bed only, some sort of setting along those lines where the support will be off here to the side and it will snake up from the outside. Now those, because of all the snakiness, it tends to be a little more fragile, more fragile, and That's often when when my prints have problems. It's often because the support is trying to do too much fanciness. That's because I just want less to clean up. So cutting the figure often helps. But the response has been lovely. I think maybe 100 copies have been downloaded so far today. And I'll be making it available on DriveThruRPG. So anybody who missed the Kickstarter campaign, or people who just want their books from DriveThruRPG, they'll be available there. I think Intoximancy is closing in on the silver seller, silver medallion seller, silver. I don't know. They have a different tier, and I don't know the exact sales figures. Hey, Moose. Good to see you. So the response has been very kind, and I'm super excited for this one and excited for the next one. I've had a lot of time because so much of this has been like, going through an InDesign file and adding all these touches that honestly didn't need to be there. If you look at Intoximancy, and I hope you do, it has like the pages themselves have these nice little elements of like wine stain rings, as if someone was drinking and placed their beverage down on the page. And these little circles, they create a nice little balance in the design. So if this heavy type here is it's literally a splash of color. Death Dealing didn't really have that. There wasn't really an aesthetic. I thought about having cards kind of sliding in different places. It didn't really work. But for Metadomain, what I thought was, this is for the Prayer's Handbook, this is sort of the crazed tome. And so maybe it should have these kind of sketches all around the edges. And initially it was going to be more manic sketches, like maybe even annotating things on the page. But my worry there was legibility at certain sizes. One of the things about a PDF is having the text nice and crisp and being vector actual text makes it legible at smaller sizes if someone's looking on their devices. If it's going to be just me with a scribble in the corner, that's going to be a lot harder to read, and I didn't want it to be just an Easter egg for the people who bought the print books. So in the end, I just went with decoration. But I did pack the book with so much stuff that the legalese page 2 of the book, has got like 2 sets of dumb jokes. I don't need to do that. But I honestly had my mad, this is just like one of the documents that became the book. Like, oh yeah, I decided that was going to be a creature. I just decided to sketch that, and that became a 3D model. The what did I call them? The biblioforms, the book monsters, which are definitely me thinking like the Flagonborn from Intoximancy. There are 3 biblioforms: the Codex creature, the Folio fiend, and the manual monster. The the inspirations from those are pretty easy to determine, but hopefully legally distinct enough for me not to have problems. Of all the Steves I know to stream on Twitch, you're one of them. Oh, that's the nicest. That's among the nicest things people have said on Twitch to some people. But it's nice to. It is. I missed everybody, but. Even today, after being off for a month, and I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to do this. The book is done. Everything's out. I'm scrambling. I'm scrambling to get back from the post office to drop off more orders and to get back here and try to squeeze in time to eat food, try to eat lunch. Didn't happen. I had a protein bar as I'm trying to get the restream to behave. And then MailerLite just being releasing a new version. A lot of this is tied to, if anyone uses WooCommerce, you just had a chicken parm sub. I am envious. I am very envious. But it ties into that WooCommerce is dropping the REST API. It's a bit of, I think it's a code suite that their system has relied on. And with the next version of 9, WooCommerce 9, which isn't out yet, but will be out soonish, is abandoning that. So anything that you have, any software plugins or any kind of dependency to that software, once it is stripped out of WooCommerce, those things will fail. There is a plugin that you can add that WooCommerce is, that I forget their parent company, Automatic, that they've produced, which will be which will replace that functionality. So, but until then, there's been all these alerts on your site. Hey, this is going to break. This is going to break. And I think one of the things I don't like about what MailerLite has done. MailerLite had this system that's really great. I went with them when Mailchimp started to be really screwy with their pricing system. Like, you have all these people subscribe. Their free plan would give you like 1,000 people on your mailing list for free, right? So you can have a simple mailing list. You can mail out, I don't know, X number of times per month. Very limited, but perfect for a startup. But what they did was, if a person unsubscribed from your list, they counted that towards your 1,000. So if you had if you had 900 people who've unsubscribed and 100 people who had subscribed, you'd be maxed out. It was a dumb system, and I hated it. And I'm like, okay, I abandoned them and went to MailerLite. And now MailerLite's got a weirdness, which is they had a system which works perfectly fine, but they rolled out a new version. MailerLite, so I'm now in the classic one, and there's a new MailerLite, which every new subscriber gets. The stupid part of that is they're two separate platforms that they don't talk to each other. Now you can set up an API to have two parts of the company talk, for the left hand to know what the right hand is doing. You have to set up an API to import it into the new system. The new system has its own subscription costs. So even though I'm already on the annual plan for the classic, I'd have to sign up at full price and then open a ticket to hopefully get a refund. It's stupid. It's stupid. Anyway, that's why I'm late. That's why I'm like, I don't have time to stream. I have to jump through these dumb hurdles. So this figure is pretty much done. As I showed you, I had printed this at various sizes. But what it really needs before I send it out is it needs a little bit of texture on the platform. A lot of the minis that I sculpt, I like to give a little bit of character to the environment. Now, his figure covers most of the ground, so I don't need to do a lot. But I figure adding some jagged rocks and things like that. An illustration I did for the back cover, again, I illustrated him as he looks in the book. Let's jump over there for a second. Let's go to the book, and then we'll come back and do some sculpting. But that chicken parm sub moose, that's messed up my brain. That's all I'm thinking about right now. Spinning minis, we're jumping around. I'm going to open up my PDF reader. And we're back. So this was the cover for the, and I'm trying to watch what I'm eating right now. I'm in the last month, among the things I've done is I started taking karate. As a non-violent person, it's very dumb for me to be doing that. I've thrown more punches in the last month than I have in my entire life. But it was good exercise. The school is really excellent. I have other reasons for I have other reasons for going to that school, but it's great. It's really great. I've got a lot of friends who go there, and so it's good exercise. The one issue is one of the classes is Wednesday night, where I'm doing pencil to pencil with Mike Manley and Jamar Nicholas. So there's a conflict there, so I miss one class every week. But just been exercising, and I'm completely inflexible. And so it's nice that I'm actually being asked to break a sweat, which I haven't done in a while. Also, the first class I was there, I swear I almost passed out. My lips were turning blue. I think I forgot to breathe. So if you're thinking about not breathing, I would breathe. Karate Kid. But how much does each mini cost to produce? Depending on the complexity and the weight and the amount of plastic. There's a setup fee of maybe $400 for them to create the mold, and also do things like taking the original STL file I have and slicing it and dicing it into pieces that can be printed, because most minis are like army men figures. They're very flat, and they're designed to be printed. Like when they're being illustrated and sketched from the very concept stage, they're thinking about how does this fit in a mold so it can pull out and have a solid individual piece. My sculpts are much more dynamic, and I don't mean that like take that, army men. No, my sculpts don't really take 3D printing into account. So in order to make them 3D printable, or they don't take form molding into account. So they have to be sliced and diced with various pegs and slots so that they can be reassembled and not snap together, but at least hold together in a way so you get a little bit of glue, easy to reassemble. So the company that does this is called Trenchworks. They do a fantastic job. And then after that, once the molds are made, they cost me, I don't know, $6-7 a piece, plus shipping to get them to me. And they come in the little white boxes. If you've ordered any of them, that's what you've seen them. Labels are separate. I mean, all these things add up. That's why the figures cost as much as they do. And they're not like they're not a big money maker. They're nice to have. I love them, and that's why I have them more than anything. So it's a big setup fee. That's the big ask, and they take a while. But actually, they're already in the Grognard, which is a larger figure, and the Metadomain Cleric, which is based on the figure you see here. Those are already in, and they turn out great. But Trenchworks is the company. They're fantastic. I found them through Matt Colville's company, MCDM. On their website, they were like saying, "This is who made our minis," and I reached out and thought, I could do a lot worse. They may not make money themselves, but I wonder if they drive sales to other stuff. I don't know. I'm trying to be very conscious of the people who back the Kickstarter campaign, but I do think at some point, probably when I'm doing a Kickstarter for the Middle Age collection or the next collection of my sci-fi series, Astounding Space Thrills, when I'm doing that, for the TTRPG side, I might have a sale of minis. So maybe give them a discount and clear out some storage space here and try to get them into more homes. And I still want to have the painting contest. People have sent me wonderful images. I was going to say illustrations. So images or illustrations of photographs, as it were, of the paintings they've done, the painted minis they've done. And some of them are just spectacular, and I'd love to share them. I saw the first, just a little while ago, a couple of weeks, someone 3D printed the Prayer's Handbook, which is given away over on Patreon at the moment. I think I've showed everybody an example of this thing. Let's have its... Yeah. So this thing is 3D printable. I don't think this doesn't have the felt in it yet, so it would come apart. But it's in a few pieces. It's got the pages, it's got the back cover and spine, the cover. Now this is printed in 2 colors because there's some 3D printers that can do that. The Carbon X1 can print in multiple colors. It takes a while for it to change filament. And there's slots in there for magnets so that the thing just can snap together. So someone printed one of these out. It was nice to see that out in the wild. I'm going to have these at some of the conventions I do. My conventions schedule this year is, I've got the South Carolina Comic Con in about 3 weeks, SC Comic Con. It's in Greenville, South Carolina. Then I've got Heroes Con in June. These are comic conventions. Then the Daytona Beach Comic Show, which is basically my local convention. And then the Baltimore Comic Con. And I've been accepted, this is breaking news, I've been accepted for an artist author table at Gamehole Con, the gaming convention I went to last year. That's the one that's in Madison, Wisconsin. And it was a wonderful event. I'm so excited to go back. Last year, I didn't really know I was an artist author, that I had an artist author spot until a month before the show, maybe? So everything was too expensive. The choice of hotels was impossible. But I will be there. That was a wonderful gaming convention. And anywho. So this is the cover, I'm pointing the correct way, of the Prayer's Handbook. The blue cover is the one for the zine and for the PDF, and there's kind of a golden, a little more greenish, more sylvan color for the hardcover books. And then every one of these books has a title page. You can see this, even having that kind of penciled sketch in the background of the environment around the edges, even that was a hurdle, because normally when I'm doing things in InDesign for print, you can do things like you can set stuff on different layers and have different layer effects, much like Photoshop or Procreate where you can say I want it to multiply or screen or darken only, or set the opacity to 50%. If you set the opacity of anything other than 100% and then export that to for a web-friendly and interactive quality PDF, those things just fall apart. They're like, it looked like schmutz, looked like, I don't know, ash on the sides of the page. You couldn't see any of the artwork. So the placed objects had to be at 100% in InDesign. So I set the original layered Photoshop piece to 50%. So anyway, hoops. And don't worry, it's only on every page. That didn't take too long. A guy I worked with is printing me out the book. Only good thing that's going to come from the mandatory in-person department meeting next month will be getting my hands. Oh, that's awesome. That's fantastic. So I was really happy with the title page. I looked at this with that nice little decoration. It's a little blown out on the stream, but the thing I liked about the decoration is once I looked at Intoximancy and Death Dealing, suddenly those seem plain by comparison. So I've gone a little. Hopefully I haven't made a big problem for myself moving forward, but I probably have. So this is a normal licensing page. It exists for two reasons. One, my copyright bit, and then the license here, which is that little second paragraph of text. That was that second paragraph of text. It used to be a full page when it was the OGL, and that was a full page of very, very small type. Now it can all be summarized with that one Creative Commons blurb. And then from the beginning, I knew I wanted to have that quote, that all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players, attributed to some bard. And a real test of character. This is kind of the whole reason this book exists, was to set the tone of the thing and to have fun. Hopefully this is fun to read. I'm not going to read it for you. No spoilers. But I probably rewrote it 50 times. When I got proofreading comments back, this page and the other page at the end, which is really the page that says, "Can we be real for a moment?" Again, the idea of what is reality? Can we be real for a moment? That page where it's kind of addressed to the player and to the game master. It talks about how you play this, how it fits into a campaign. I'm not going to tell people how to do it, but I'm going to say here are things to think about. Get back on before the stream. Glad to see you. Telmont, that's great. Well, safe travels. Your priorities are definitely in order. I expect to be here until 7. That's what I told folks who are on Kickstarter, and so any late folks who are joining us, I want to make sure I'm here for them. And then always come back to this part later on. One of the things about this book is it has less art. And I take that back. It has just as much art. It just doesn't feel like it has as much art because the art is takes up less of a percentage of the page. So it's just as many illustrations, but they are smaller because there's just so much I had to cram in here. Things about the cleric subclass in 5th edition. It depends on what the kids let me get away with. Toddlers are demanding for attention. The cleric class in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is an odd duck compared to some of the other classes. In terms of subclass features, you get it at levels 2, 6, and then 17. There's like levels 11 through 11 through 16, no subclass perks. Now you do get other things like as you level up, you get other things. Suddenly there are spells that you always know. For folks who know how to play D&D, that makes sense. And things like divinity, the channel divinity that clerics can do, and there's other abilities that you have that do improve over time, but they're not kind of like these big bonuses that you unlock. Whereas other classes, like at level 10, a bard suddenly learns 2 spells from any class in the game. I mean, those are big, wonderful things to unpack once you hit those levels, and clerics tend not to have that. So that really fits into well with what I'm doing here with the Prayer's Handbook as a magic item that the cleric carries. As it levels up, you get all the perks that all the other subclasses have, just kind of along the way. One of the thoughts about the meta domain, I knew it was going to be wonky because meta domain clerics are clerics who believe this is all a game. Their patron is essentially their player. At level 8, they learn their player's name. Oh wait, there's a level 8 perk as well. Some class has a perk at level 8. I forgot about that. Usually it just improves their... It usually is just a smite, like some sort of physical attack, which to me doesn't always seem right with a cleric, with clerics. But at level 8 in this subclass, you learn your player's name. And so you can invoke it for basically upcasting a spell. So I'm thinking like Doctor Strange would say, by the hoary hosts of Hoggoth. Like, okay, Hoggoth is the name of your player. By the hoary hosts of Harold. And then you swing your hammer, or you cast your spell, and it's upcast by a number of levels equal to your wisdom modifier. So it doesn't let you cast spells that are outside of your ability to cast them, but it lets you upcast them. So your bless can affect more people. So your hold person can affect more targets. So your guiding bolt will hit a lot harder. Things like that. And you could do that once per game session. A lot of things about this being meta domain is that it's not tied to dawn, resetting at dawn, resetting with a long rest. A lot of it's per game session. Again, thinking about the game and that kind of, which I do like, because I've run in some dungeons. I've been a player in some dungeons where it's gone on for 2 months, and we're clearing out one level at a time, and technically it's all the same day. You know, or maybe it's day 2. We got to find a place to take a rest in some little alcove somewhere. And you're thinking, okay, is it dawn? Will the magic wands reset at dawn the way they're supposed to? But having an ability once per game session is also a thing where they've talked about in this Dungeons and Dragons, a game where a 5-minute fight will take 3 hours, and a 3-day hike will take 5 minutes. If you're spending the entire session just traveling the countryside, going from one end of a region to another, you're only going to use this ability once because it's per game session. So I don't know, I like that. I like playing with stuff like that. Do they ever learn why player designed them physically the way they are, or gave them the thematic backstory? There is a section I can get to here in a minute called Epiphanies. And the idea was to give... Prompts is such a loaded term now because of AI. But going to give the players prompts for, as you level up, how you think of the character, how you think of the game, how you fit in the world. It starts with simple stuff like, level 1, you think this is all a game. Level 2, I believe you start hearing music, epic music, every time you're in a combat situation, and nobody else seems to be able to hear it. So it's like stuff that, you're watching Critical Role, or you're having this, the meta effect is, I don't know, it makes it, is it a narrative that you're in? Are you in a narrative? Where's the music coming from? And level 3 is the problem of evil. We go from something basically describing the class. Level 2, goofy. Level 3, deep philosophical question. Why can there be evil in the world if there's a God? And why would your players put you through this? And at some point along the way, and one of the epiphanies is that the players aren't alone. That there's an adversary who's out there, and that the players are working against that adversary. And are you strong enough? Were you designed to defeat that adversary? Eventually you'll give that adversary, I'm not going to spoil the whole book, but there's 2 pages of that stuff, because this started as, oh, this is a goofy idea, I'm just going to make it so that the meta domain is silly. But then I'm like, the more I was writing it and the deeper I got into it, I'm like, I have to, I've got to give people all the tools to just go nuts. So you've got the subclasses got cool abilities, like you get your Prayer's Handbook, you get immaterial components. Someone really complained about this one. Not really. They were critical of it, maybe rightly so. But I thought, of the things in the spellcasting functions of Dungeons and Dragons, one of the few limitations they have, apart from concentration, which is a big deal, is the fact that some spells require material components. Like if you want to raise the dead, you need a diamond worth X amount of gold, or you need, ruby dust worth X amount of gold. And those material components can weigh on a character, especially at lower levels. But that's a problem that goes away very quickly. Every campaign I've been in and witnessed, at some point characters have gold coming out their ears. They don't know what to do with it all. Fetching those material components is just a hassle. And the notion of, if this is not real, maybe material components are also not real. And so the only thing I ever thought about doing is limiting the number of times they do this, but that just adds more bookkeeping. And this is a crunchy subclass, but I don't want it to be that crunchy. And wherever I can make things a little bit easier for people, I do. Then you get Channel Divinity. Channel Divinity is the thing that every cleric has. They usually get one. Up until level 6, you only get one per day, per long rest, where you get to invoke your divinity in some way and create a special effect. Usually it's turning the undead, making a bunch of undead creatures run away from you. But sometimes it's an extra bonus perk. Order Domain Clerics, I'm playing one of those right now in a campaign. They get to tell everybody, hey, freeze. Like basically give them one-word suggestion. Drop your weapons. Freeze or hold or whatever, and they'll drop their weapons. And for one round, you charm them. In this case, it gives the people around them a buff, and it gives them a bunch of different options. You can let people, for the number of rounds, not for minutes, number of rounds equal to your wisdom modifier, you can give everybody increased walking speed, a slow flying speed. Basically a kind of situational thing that lets you extricate yourself from a situation. I think that's fun. And then you'll have 2 of them per day once you get to level 6. And then you get 3 of them at level 17. Plot armor is fun. This is kind of bullet time. Neo in the Matrix, where your understanding of the universe makes you harder to hit. So time slows down for you in a way, and so you get to replace your armor class with your wisdom score. And then you can take things like cover. I think cover helps. There's certain, or magical things help, like, no, cover doesn't help. Maybe it does? I forget. I'll have to read it. One of the things about this is writing these rules so many times and boiling things down and fighting with myself. I want to make it cool and powerful. I don't want to make it too powerful and ruin the game for everybody, because that's the real thing. Everybody would love to have an I win button, but that ruins the game. I want people to be making tough choices, and effective choices. That level 8 I mentioned, you get the ability to invoke your player's name for increased effect. Then at level 17, you get the wish spell because you know your game master's name. And then rules is rewritten, where you get to double the effect or halve the effect. Let's say someone's going to hit your team with Meteor Storm. You cut the damage in half, or you cut the range in half. You get to rewrite the rules a little bit, usually by a factor of 0.5, or double it. So if your team is throwing the Meteor Storm, suddenly it's hitting twice as hard. But that's all level 17 stuff. Most games never get that far. This was a fun in-joke, the spiritual reference document. In D&D, the SRD is the systems reference document. So it seemed appropriate to make that little allusion. And then how your book levels up. Everyone saw me illustrate that here on the stream, I think. There's a ton of minor perks. The idea is, as you level up, you get to choose from a menu of perks that your magic book can have. Like, among them is the book can emit light, or it can shield your mind, or it can store things. I'd like the idea of you touch an object up to 100 pounds, I think. You touch an object like a sword, and suddenly it vanishes and becomes a drawing in the book. and then you can bring it back out. But it doesn't function like a bag of holding. It has to be an object. It can't be a creature. It doesn't explode if you put it in a bag of holding. Major perks are really big, and you only ever get 2 major perks, and I've offered a ton of them here. But I think a lot of them are tough choices, like increasing your armor class by 2, increasing the effectiveness of Bane or Bless. That would be really tempting for me to take. Fortified, it creates a fortress. Some of these are similar to what the options that existed with the Intoximancy. If they're really good ones that seem like universal, I might put them in every magic item. Healing, bonus to your healing, and speed reading, which I really liked. It was almost speed reading was almost a subclass feature where when you cast a ritual spell in D&D, most spells consume your personal energy, your personal stores of magical energy, and you can only do X number of them per long rest. And there's other magic items which can rebolster your energy supply, replace your mana. But one of the things you can do that doesn't tap into your mana reserves, into your energy reserves, is to cast a ritual spell. So something which would normally take less than a few seconds, you can spend 10 minutes slowly reading this from a book. And instead of taking that Vancian magic of like that's stored in your head and you release it and it's gone, you have this, you read it from the book and then it takes effect. But it takes 10 minutes to read the whole thing. So ritual spells are cool, but they take forever. This one has speed reading, which you can do it in a minute. I think that would be very tempting for a lot of people, a lot of clerics to take, even though the other ones are clearly more effective, more powerful spells, like improving Bless, changing it from 1d4 to a 1d6. Sometimes it's better than a regular Bless. And then the defining characteristics. This one has more than any of the others, in that you can choose meta knowledge, which you get to roll to figure out, to know something you shouldn't know. That's what metagaming is often, the idea of bringing in information from outside. You as a player using knowledge that your character shouldn't know, that alters your character's decision making, and that's bad playing. That's not proper role playing. The fact that you know that this creature is a Tarrasque. Your character's never seen one before, never heard of one. Suddenly you're facing one, and if you're like, well, don't use this spell, it won't work. To me as a player, I feel like my first move has to be to use the spells that I know. What would this player who doesn't know what that thing is do in that situation? And do it that way, not what you would do, what they would do, right? So meta knowledge is a way of rolling, and depending on your role, you get to know about the target. The other ones are magic words. This is kind of a default one where you get a spell slot back. That's for people who want raw power. The min-maxers, the raw power option is sometimes the tempting one, so I include that. Then there's game changing, where you roll percentile dice at the beginning of the game and it changes the rules for the whole game. My favorite one of these, Jimmy James! My favorite one of these is you don't crit on a 20, you crit on a 17. So, mathematically identical. It could actually help you because if a 17 would miss, I'm not sure who you're fighting when a 17 misses, but rolling so there's a chance. But if you roll a 17, that's a crit. And there's other little things like that, like counter spells don't work, or there's no effect. At the very first one is there's no effect, and then the highest level one, you get to choose the effect, which can be no effect. If you think this is just going to mess everything up, my fellow players don't like when I do this, and the very last one you get to choose is game ending, where you get to abandon this subclass and choose a different cleric subclass. I don't think D&D has that. I don't know of any. I mean, I imagine some players have made the appeal. I think maybe early editions of D&D had that, where you would get your character to a certain level in Thief and Fighter, and then you could say, okay, I've gotten them to level 4 and level 2. Can I now be a level 1 Cavalier or something like that? or there was a weird path to become a monk. So in this case, level 7, and the epiphany for level 7 is, what if this isn't real? What if I'm crazy? What if this can't be a game? This doesn't make any sense that this is a game. This is all the gods of ravens, the gods of storms. They're the real gods. Everyone believes in them. They've even shown up from time to time. Because that was one of the pieces of this subclass was, in a game where every level 5 cleric can walk on water and raise the dead, what is faith? And if faith is believing that it's all a game, and you're the only one who believes it, to me it's a little bit like Abed from Community. He keeps saying this is a TV show. This is a bottle episode, and Jeff's just yelling at him. This is not TV. This is not an episode. There's that room. There's that. What benefit does meta knowledge have over other roles for does your character know this role types? Because this is specifically knowledge you wouldn't know. So it's not like an Arcana check. Someone's there's runes. I'm proficient in Arcana. Tell me what that is. Or I'm proficient in history. Let me make a history roll. Or you're not proficient in history and I just rolled and you roll at 20. So a very high, overcoming a high DC. In this case, let me change my goggles. It is a wisdom, it's a perception check you roll. So you roll a perception roll. I think it's once per game session. Yeah, once per game session. And depending on the die roll, it's not against there. It's not like there's a certain rogue subclass where you roll your perception against their charisma to determine whether or not you've perceived their weakness. Straight perception roll. You learn the target's full name is that basically you roll a 1. You just learn their name. Then you can learn their full name, plus their resistances, immunities, and vulnerabilities. Now, monks have an ability like that, where you can hit something and learn some details about their resistances and vulnerabilities. So there's that. The next one up is those same things plus any of the current conditions acting upon it. So if they are poisoned, or I think current conditions. Yeah, so poison, paralyzed, exhausted, anything like that. Again, it's not great, but that's what you get up through like 1 through 19. Basic monk level stuff. After that, if you get 20 to 24, you learn that, plus the names of any spells or effects acting upon the target. So now you might know if they've got mage armor up, or if they are protected with something or other. Like you managed to overcome their sanctuary spell, but now hey, they've got sanctuary cooking, or they've got some other function. After that, you learn their hit point total. So that's I was going to include things like you know precisely which number to hit. There's certain things that as you're playing and fighting a monster in D&D, the whole team is piecing it together. What did you roll to hit? An 18 and it missed? Okay. Then someone rolls a 19. Okay, now everyone at the table, there's almost always a statement. Okay, we need a 19 to hit. Like, that's meta, right? And then 30 plus, which I don't think will be that uncommon the higher level you get in this class. You learn the names of any magic items the target is carrying and or attuned to. So it's basically just information you shouldn't have otherwise, or confirming information you think you know. Because part of it could be, and it could be disappointing if you're fighting an undead and you use this ability and you find out they're immune to poison, which most undead are, and they're resistant to necrotic damage, like most undead are. You're still confirming it. So I don't think it's a waste, but I think it's effective and can be really effective in higher level situations. You're fighting a dragon, you don't know what it's in. Okay, before it even begins, watch out, everyone. It's immune to fire and radiant, and that can save people a lot of wasted spell slots. And then it's 2 pages of epiphanies. Learning the players, the recurring theme music, the problem of evil. Level 5, a level playing field. It sounds crazy, but not only is the world flat, it's also covered with a neat grid of 5-foot squares. For what purpose? My favorite, dumbest one of the list. A lot of these have to do with how the game is played. My favorite is hiding something. The find trap spell in D&D is very poorly worded, And so this subclass thinks there's got to be a reason why. What are they hiding? We got magic spells, Dirty 20, which is essentially you cast this buff on somebody, and the next roll, saving throw, attack roll, or ability check they make will be a 20. It won't be a crit, but it'll be a 20, a Dirty 20. It's a level 2 enchantment. Polyhedral Blast is like a weak fireball for clerics. The damage is always the same, but if they fail the saving throw, they get a bane. All the targets hit get a bane on them. Dump stat is one where they have to make a saving throw using their worst stat, and after that, all their saving throws and ability checks are made with their worst stat. At the end of every round, they get to roll again to see if they break that effect using their worst stat. So I like the idea of this in the hands of a villain, because many players have given their characters a weak stat. Like, I don't care about charisma, I don't care about strength. You can have an 8 strength or a 6 charisma, but that's a stat you have to use for stuff. A cantrip called How Would You Like to Do That? Which is you enhance your friend's next attack. You touch a willing creature once before the spell ends. If the target vividly and creatively describes the actions while they make a weapon attack, the attack does an extra 1d6 radiant damage, and it scales up like cantrips do. So to the fighter, how would you like to do that? And then on their attack, they explain how they parkour off a wall, roll across a table, and swing their axe in a creative way, as judged by the GM. They'll do extra damage. So it's like you're hitting it with a fire. You could just use Toll the Dead. You could just use Sacred Flame as a cantrip attack, or you could bolster your friend's attack. And I like that a lot. Or Rogue's attack, because then it'll crit. Power word no is a big deal. This is one that'll stop any action. You basically no. And any action that the character would be doing, whether it's an action, bonus action, reaction, you use a reaction to stop it. Counterspell will block it. If they have less than 150 hit points, it stops the action. It'll consume the spell slot. Whatever it is, it just stops it. So power word no. The real heavy downside of this is something that I've introduced with some of the magic items I have over on my Patreon, is that it consumes a death save. This spell takes a heavy toll on you. No, it's like takes all your energy to stop them. Like they're gonna clobber your friend. They're going to cast Meteor Storm on the town. They're going to drop a castle on somebody. No, it stops it. Eats a death save. And because there's no mechanic for restoring a death save, I had to make sure I included it, that it's simply restored on a long rest. And then Follow and Subscribe is a very silly spell, which basically you debuff a target, and for the next, I forget what it is, 48 hours, anytime they do anything that requires a skill check, whether it's an attack roll or cast a spell or does something that like picks a lock or rolls a persuasion check, anything that they would do in a situation that does that, you're told their direction and what they just did. They just cast the spell Fireball, or they just picked a lock. You get this alert all the time. It can interrupt long rests. So there's a ton of spells here. I'm not sure if people are losing interest in this. Satanic Panic is another one. It's basically a what's the spell called? Hypnotic Pattern, but it causes everyone to be afraid of all of other creatures. Then Spiritual Decahedron is like Spiritual Weapon, but it's a 1d10, shorter range. And you can't upcast it forever like you can with a Spiritual Weapon. And then the last one is THAC0, which was, in old D&D terms, to hit armor class 0, which was the math system that was used, kind of a backwards way of looking at rolling a d20 to hit things. Like, what would you need to roll to hit if their armor class were 0? And so if their armor class, and then you could just do, well, their armor class is plus this, all told, then you now know what you need to. Anyway, in this case, THAC0 is, you go Abracathaco, and their armor class is 0 until they're hit. Kind of like the opposite of a Displacer Beast buff, kind of like, where until they're hit, they're shimmering and you can't quite see them when they're hit. Their displacer effect goes away till the beginning of the next round. In this case, THAC0, the target has an armor class of 0. So you should be able to hit, unless you roll a 1, or they run away, or they get, you know, or they do something else. You know, but they can still take the dodge action, which give you disadvantage on the roll. So that was silly, and I liked it. A bunch of magic items, the tinfoil helm, the polyhedral mace, which is kind of a standard mace, except it does 1d20 points of bludgeoning damage. So don't get crit by it. The helm of the war duck was an immediately dumb joke, of course. This was a painting of Wattlebottom that I was doing that I want to have as a standee at my table at conventions. I basically just want there to be a foam Wattlebottom on my table. If you don't know who Wattlebottom is, please check out The Middle Age, my webcomic at middleagecomic.com. It's on Webtoons and Tapas and Go Comics. But Wattlebottom is the lord of all ducks. And so he's basically just that kind of duck, but with a crown. So I've got the crown on a separate layer. I finished the painting and used it for this illustration. But the helm of the war duck is, there's Warduke from D&D, the classic cartoon. I'm like, I want to make the helm of a war duck. So I was basically, on the cover of this book, I wanted to show the meta nature of the concept. So there's a character sheet. There's a grid. There's a drawing of a map. There's a helmet that's sitting there that's also kind of becoming a drawing in that old blue and white style that you'd see in the inside fold of the old adventures. I didn't quite go 100% cyan. I went with like a blueprint blue. But that helmet, and then I flipped it and cleaned it up and made it a larger drawing for the inside the book. It's a nod to Warduke's helmet. It's almost the very same design for the central portion of it. Large central red gem, kind of a Magneto helmet shape, and his has these bat wings that look kind of awesome. And I just went with duck wings. I went with bird wings. And so you turn into a duck. And I don't think there's an official duck stat block. So I made one. Also made a suggestion that you can use duck as a familiar with the Find Familiar spell if you're Dungeon Master, your Game Master allows it. But in doing this, I had to research how fast ducks are. Because owls are a classic familiar that people have, and they have a fly speed of 60. Waterfowl fly faster than owls do. So I had to give ducks a faster flight speed than... But all of them are like, it's all dumb. It's all like, you know, this guy's going to be approaching Pegasus speed. So instead of the owl's 60 feet, he has a 65-foot flying speed. A classic flying creature's ability is Flyby, which lets them attack and move out of an opponent's range without getting an opportunity attack. Which anytime in D&D, if a character is next to one another, almost every time, and you move away, if an opponent has an available reaction, they can choose to attack you as you try to get away from them. And a flyby blocks that ability, and this guy has a swim by speed, so he can also do the same thing. If underwater, if the duck moves in and attacks, he can also swim away without provoking an opportunity attack. The elementary lens of investigation is just dumb. I'm not gonna lie. The die of dying, the idea that you throw this object, and depending on the saving throw, the number rolled on the die. So the person rolls a saving throw. What was it there? Constitution, right? Constitution, DC 15, fairly high Constitution check. But this is a very rare item. You throw it, and they're if they fail, they are reduced to the number of hit points on the die. And if they succeed, they take as much damage equal to what's on the die. So it's powerful, very powerful. It will also have very little also failing the save would have very little effect on a low-level character. And succeeding effect would have very little effect on a high-level character. The helping hand medallion is another idea I've had for a while, which I like the idea of. One of the things that makes the life of spellcasters difficult is that some spells have semantic components. You've got to move your hands and do your various Doctor Strange moves. But your hands are often full, holding a shield, holding a mace, or something like that. This medallion allows you, when you activate it, to have these kind of spiritual, spectral arms perform those for you. So you're holding all your stuff, and then these arms, these energy arms, come up and start moving in a way to take care of that component, take care of the somatic components for you. Blade of Purest Proscenium. Proscenium is the front of a stage. It just sounds like metal. So I have a brick of brick of the fourth wall in the Archmage Angus MacGuffin's Unknown Artifacts and Awful Obscurities zine that I put together. That is a block of the fourth wall. I didn't have a place for that in this book. I'm messing with everyone's head so much already. This seemed like too much. But the Blade of Purest Proscenium is just the idea that the blade looks tougher than it is, and if you fall for it, it'll do more damage. And if you don't fall for it, it doesn't do more damage. And then the Wand of 1d6. I like this as if you have a sword, you're going to swing a sword all day long. And if you have an axe or a bow and arrow, if you have enough arrows, you can just fire these things all day long. As a magic user, you've got your cantrips, they're fine. But if you want to equip someone with a magical weapon, like an army. And so that's what these are. This was the standard issue magical weapon that the gnomes had during the second edition wars. And they just casts a spell. It just does, you point it and it fires a bolt does 1d6 of damage. It's a wand that has unlimited uses. Doesn't do a lot of damage, but I wouldn't want to deal with a lot of kobolds who have these. It doesn't have a huge range, 90 feet. It's not like some of this 120 foot, it's not like Eldritch Blast. And then we get into the monsters. But tell you what, I'm going to take a little break here. I appreciate everyone who's here. You're all awesome and, just gloriously handsome. Very symmetrical. But I got to take a break. I drink more water. I'm parched. I'm just been on a tear. If you haven't checked out the book, don't come back. Aww. That's mean. Well, I'm going to go take a quick cry. When I'm done sobbing, I'll be right back. You're all lovely. It's something to be back. All right, I'll see you all in a few minutes. Here's a lovely interstitial video of wonderful illustrations by much better artists than myself. And I'm back. All right. So what did I miss? Yeah, we got some people here. We got some folks over on the Twitch, over on the YouTubes. Thank you for being here. You're lovely. We were talking about The Prayer's Handbook, which just came out today in digital format. The PDF was distributed to my wonderful Kickstarter supporters. I had pre-orders over on my website. I'm hoping that folks got those as well. I have to double check to make sure those are downloaded. But we were talking about that. So what I was saying was, in the month I was away, which is making what happens in America. I understand that. In the month I was away, I started taking karate classes. Not because I'm, not because I'm any interested. I have no interest in fighting anybody, but I just want to get in shape, and having a structured system with belts, totally gamified. I mean, when I went in there, I was looking at what they do. I'm like, this is a game. You're at some, you know, you level up with belts. It gets progressively harder. You gain skills along the way. But at the first class, I was like, I'm just going to sit in the lobby and sweat. I was wheezing. Oh, I don't think my heart rate had gone up in like, I don't know, 20 years. So, holy cow, I was near-death experience. So, that was fun. That was fun. Anywho, so it's getting better, and I have no flexibility. You know, I'm just I'm a geezer, so it was fun. So I'm gonna keep doing that. And then they had their first tournament. There's a tournament in the area in April, and the school said, if we get enough people to sign up, you know, we'll have more tournaments in the area, so people don't have to go up the East Coast or wherever they have to go for their tournaments. So I'm like, okay, I'll support it. I'll sign up, but I'm not gonna spar, because I'm just if I got hit, I'd weep, and if I hit anybody, I would just spend, oh, I'm so sorry. I'd spend the entire time, oh, are you all right? I'm so sorry. So nobody wants that. Anywho, so this is a title page. I did this in the Intoximancy book. I did it in, I don't think I did that in Death Dealing, because Death Dealing has that house, that big monstrous house, all based on the stupid joke that the house always wins. This has got equally dumb jokes. Yeah, I was like, I don't want to hit people. I don't want to be hit. Aren't we past that? Aren't we past violence? But I did a lot of Tai Chi back during the beginning of the COVID, and that's just because I just knew I was going to be locked in my house. I wasn't going to go anywhere, so I'd start watching YouTube videos and doing Tai Chi. It's very similar. I like the structure. I like the teachers are excellent. And anywho. But you know, no, I don't want to hit anybody. Anywho. So, clerical terrors. Your faith will be tested when facing these arguments against intelligent design. I like to bust on myself. So we have a title page, which is kind of a collage of the various monsters. I didn't include the end gamer on this. I just thought I was looking at doing that, but it kind of fits. These are more like, I can imagine all those things teaming up to fight things. I don't see the end gamer playing nicely with others. That illustration I was very happy with, so I was happy to give it a full page. Lots of fun abilities, like as it studies its opponents, its armor class goes up every round. It has the ability to silence people. It has a grog-splaining ability, which can give you levels of exhaustion. A grognard in D&D terms, as I understand it, that was what the older soldiers in Napoleon's army, in the French army, were called grognards, and who had a habit of complaining. And so the origins of D&D as a wargaming game, the older people who would complain in the war games would be grognards, and that kind of stuck. I decided to make it a monster. It's proven very popular. I know Dan, everyone's friend Dan Taylor, he's going to be using it in his campaign. And what's really funny was that he found a piece of artwork that was very similar to this. I don't think this style of illustration is not. the idea of a burly bearded skull is almost like, I bet one's in every flash book and every tattoo parlor. But this one in particular, with the fur and the cloak and the books, is part of the thinking was with Grognard. Grognard was often an insult to people, like, but it's also like nerd. It's something that was reclaimed by the community. People are like, yeah, I'm a Grognard. I'm an old guy who's got complaints. Hopefully in a jovial way. But I felt I wanted to make it kind of imposing. Like, let people claim this. Let it be a signifier of expertise and of age. And so the reason why it was a skull was it was just like, this is old. Clerical terror sounds like what I deal with in my health insurance I'm sorry. Yay, greatest healthcare system in the world. And it has got abilities like exhausting grog-splaining, which it'll just start droning on and exhausting everybody. And then splat book, which they throw a book, it has like a explosive effect. A hydrahedron. This took forever to draw. Putting these little numbers on every facet of this thing, now this is the low res web version, but every one of those is a number. Oof, I say, too much work. And then hatchlings. I like the idea that you would be walking through a dungeon and you'd see these dice, and they would hatch, and releasing these little creatures. And at this point, this was very much inspired by the Flagonborn in Intoximancy. So you've got the Hobgoblet and the Tankard and the Brokenstein's monster. In this case, the thought was evil books, and riffing off of the Monster Manual and the Creature Codex and the Fiend Folio. So just reverse the names, give them a cool look. And then this character, the Endgamer, had many names before it got here. I think it was the Metagamer at one point. I think that was the name that stuck the longest. But really, it's more like the spirit of the character is an Endgamer, someone who a fallen meta domain cleric, someone who thinks it's all a game, but thinks it's unfair, and thinks the game should end. And the way to get the game to end is to kill the characters. If they kill the characters, the game will end. They're not wrong. And so it's a very messed up character. Maybe think like Moriarty from Star Trek The Next Generation. There are other examples of this sort of, Toontown, The Judge. There's a lot of examples of the non-real having an issue with it. And then we get into the last page of the book. There's the thank you for my wonderful Patreon supporters, patreon.com/Steve Conley. And a nod to Intoximancy, hopefully move some more books. But this page is just like a letter directly to the player and the dungeon master about how to navigate this weirdness. But hopefully, hopefully all of it is going to be fun to read. More than anything else, when I started this book, I wanted this to be something like, even if you never play it, that it gives you ideas. And even if you never play it, it's fun to read and silly. And although some of the spells, I gotta think some people are going to work these into their campaigns, even if they think the whole concept is wonky. And I'm really happy with how the art turned out. That piece in particular. That book there was based on the 3D model. That drawing right there is based on the 3D model. I wanted to include it somewhere in the book. And then, no AI. Oh, and the last page. I got to the last page. I didn't do it. The back cover. I don't think I've included the back cover in the PDFs before. But I took that end gamer illustration and I just sort of roughed out a painting of like the top of a tower, like a stone pillar of some kind, and then painted in stars and some sort of celestial D20 and D6 and a D8 and a D12. Yeah, I think it's a nice different cover than a nice different back cover. The one I like the most so far was the tied with this one is the Intoximancy, the pink elephants on the back cover. All right, let's see if I can get some artwork done. Thank you all for indulging me as I walk through all that stuff. One thing to note, if anyone's interested in making role-playing games, that who is it? Chaosium announced a contest. Normally, I'm not a fan of contests, but this one seems to have very little strings attached. So, and no entrance fee. So a lot of stuff that usually those are the red flags when a contest has, pay to take part, or by entering you hand over all rights. In this case, that doesn't seem to be the case here. Where are my glove? Where's my glove? Where did you go? There you are. And so Chaosium has a contest for people who want to pitch a role-playing game based on their open game system. Basic role-playing game, I believe it's called. And the prizes aren't huge. The prizes aren't enough money to make the game. But it's not like, but they are, and Chaosium has said as much, that they're not there to make it so that you can make the game. They're there to give you a shot in the arm, to give you enough money to maybe do commission cover art, or run some ads for your crowdfunding campaign. So there's 10 people will. Was it 10 finalists? I don't know their exact word. 10 finalists will get $500. Like, what can you get for that? You can get some Facebook ads. You can get cover artwork commissioned. Then among those, one winner will be chosen. I think just one, and they'll get $2,000. Again, what can you do with that? How much of a project can you build for that amount of money? And then then there's a fan prize, if the one the fans like the most. I'm not sure how that popularity contest will be judged, but that will be another $500. So, I mean, conceivably, if whoever gets the top prize will already be one of the top 10, so that will presumably be $2,500 right there, and then maybe another $500 if you're also the fan favorite. Unlikely. So $2,500. That's nothing to sneeze at, but it's worth thinking about. The main consideration is you're building it with that game system, which is a D100 system. A lot of percentile dice. And it is kind of a GURPS jack of all trades kind of game. It's designed, the basic book is like, says, okay, here's how you play sci-fi, and here's how you play superheroes, here's how you play fantasy and western, and whatever genre of fiction you want, that system can handle it. But when it can do everything, usually it can't. Usually it's not great at anything too. It's wide and shallow, not deep. So, I don't know. That's given me some ideas. I don't know if I would actually pitch anything for it. But I tend to think anyone who's going to take one of their own ideas and retrofit it for that system, of all the systems, it's maybe the most flexible. So if you have an idea for something that is there, I don't know, your cyberpunk western, the system can handle it. If you want to do your space marine mermaids, the system can handle it. But I feel like a lot of the pitches are going to be that level of let's just mash a couple of genres together. So the pitch will be, here's a basic document. Here's what I can do with $500. Here's why we're using that system. And here are the two genres I'm mashing up. And if the art's good, you'll probably place. All right, so I'm thinking I'm just going to add stones and things to the ground here. And then when I do that, then this figure will be ready to export as an STL file. And then I'll give that to my Patreon supporters. And eventually it'll be available for sale on my web shop. So let's add some bricks and such. Solo. There's already looks like a divot in the platform. A symmetrical divot at that. I'm going to try to smooth that out. Yeah, it'll be there for a while, probably. We're going to cover it with stuff anyway. Great. So what I do is I'm going to take a cylinder, increase division X, and then validate it, and then scale it up. And hopefully, if we look at it from above, it'll be centered on the other platform. Change the color so I can see it. It is not centered. Poop. Close enough. So I use a cylinder like that as a way of helping clean up any work I do now. So if I put any kind of rocks and things like that, they'll fall within that cylinder shape, so they won't extend past the edges of the platform. So I can hide the rest of the figure. And let's add some stuff here. The easiest thing to do would be to start with that platform we just had. So I will clone that cylinder. I will sample that color and force paint all. David! Nice to see you. I'm working on a platform for a creature, for a mini for my lovely Patreon supporters. It's a creature from the meta domain book, from the Prayer's Handbook. I hope your meeting went well. You hinted at a meeting yesterday on your channel. And more importantly, I hope Julia is feeling better. Oh, but equally importantly, because I know if your phone call went well, then she'd probably feel well. She'd probably feel better if the call went well. Meeting did go excellent. So I just spent the last, I don't know, hour and a half going through the Prayer's Handbook and talking about the features in the book. And how silly it is. A little bit about what I've been doing the last month, working on the Prayer's Handbook, working on the Middle Age, working on Nibblemancy, the next project, whenever I had any downtime. I didn't have a lot, but I did start taking karate classes. This is an effort to stave off death. Not that I think I could take death in a hand-to-hand, fight. You know, they've got a sickle for God's sakes. But just I'm horribly, horribly old. I think the people I'm working with and I both agree what is and isn't working. Oh, excellent. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you mentioned that you know, you feel a little bit better and you just want to hit the ground running again, or try to convince your body that you're feeling better. So for this, I'm going to voxel remesh nice and large. I'm going to trim this again, just like I did the other one. I don't care about the height of it. I'm going to cut the whole thing in a little while. But remesh it again. And the idea here is with the mask tool, I'm going to turn off symmetry and paint this will be little rocks and stuff on the ground. And lower my opacity a little bit so you can have softer edges. That'll affect the height at which they protrude, because when I expand things off of this, the pure black shapes will jump forward and the lighter gray ones will there'll be kind of a plateau there. It won't be a smooth shape. I guess I could if I had a nice smooth brush, but I'm not gonna worry about that. But taking this karate class has been a lot of fun. It makes me get up earlier on Saturday than I'm used to. That part I don't like. But, and I'm exhausted, but not in a way that is, that I don't think is affecting my work. It's more like, ow, my back. And there are some things I'm not going to do. Like, I've told them already, I'm not going to break any boards. I don't want to... I'm not going to hurt my hands. I wouldn't mind being in better health, doing some cardio, and certainly getting a little more flexible would be nice. That's always like that big trap, I think, is that you just start to slow down, and then you slow down, and then you slow down further, and slow down further. Save this. I'm going to try to extrude this. So did the gray shapes? No, it all went up to like 100% full height. Huh. All right then. It's a little taller. Then I'll use the smooth tool. Huh. Never tried this. Usually the smooth tool is usually on or off. Like it's going to smooth everything or not smooth everything. I want to put a different pattern in here. No, it's and it's having no effect. Gonna do anything? So now I'm just gonna smooth these off to try and hopefully round them up a bit. Round them out a bit. So as usual, I don't know what I'm doing. We'll just see if any of this looks good, and if we like it, we'll keep it, and if we don't like it, we'll get rid of it. So I just extruded all those things roughly the same height. I thought there'd be a little variance in the height. And I'm just adjusting them like this. I'll take the crease tool. Just gonna run it over everything. Nope, don't like it. Stamp tool. Let's see what we do here. I think the trouble there is that those rocks are a little too big. So let's make some very large rocks. Remeshed it very low so that would hopefully soften the edges of these weird shapes that I've got there. And I'll remesh it again, make it even smaller. And then I'll mesh it up quite a bit. So that when I apply the stamp, hopefully it'll have enough character or enough detail to be able to have the effect I'm looking for. think the texture there was a little off, a little mushy. Right, I like that. All right, so I'm going to save where I'm at. Again, this is the printable version of the file. I've gone and simplified and simplified and simplified it to bring the file size down, so I could do some of these things in a way that's not going to cause the whole thing to shatter. I think the first step I'm going to take is to get this original cylinder back here. Slide this up. Basically, use this as a way of tightening up the design. Boy, I should have. I'm going to make this disc a little bigger. Make sure I don't mess this up. Usually, I'm going to create one larger disc and then have a central column that I'm going to use to kind of, where they overlap is the part I'm going to keep. Like, you keep that's what's essentially the Venn diagram of the two pieces. I'll show you right now. So by remeshing these together, a nice big size, keeping sharp edges, the smaller central, or the column with the smaller diameter, will cut off the edges of the cylinder with the larger diameter. So you can see that purple on the outside. That's where that's showing the outside of where the purple column was. And all this is meant to fit neatly on top of the platform, the cylinder. Yeah, I don't hate that. Sweet. Okay, so we got that. I'm going to trim the bottom of this thing. So let me move all these pieces down. I'm going to have to move some of these where they overlap the foot there. Okay, well I can save, remesh them all together. See if anything blew up. Yeah, the responses from everybody who's receiving and downloading their books today has just been wonderful. I can't thank all the backers enough. Yeah, that's great. And so if anybody missed the Prayers Handbook Kickstarter campaign, you can pick up the book from my web shop. If you go to prayershandbook.com, that will take you to the Kickstarter page. If you hit the pre-order button, it'll take you right to my web shop, or you go to steveconnelly.com/shop. It will be available on DriveThruRPG. As soon as they approve it, I'll be uploading it to their server tonight, and I know there's a review period, and hopefully anyone who's following me on DriveThruRPG will see it there. Moose, no refunds. I hope you take this in the complimentary tone it is intended. That every once in a while I read a note from you, and I'm like, it's like I'm reading a script of Letterkenny. Oh, that's not gonna work. I fuse those together before I move the pieces out of the way. No takebacks. Okay, well, look, hate to do it, but we're going to separate the pieces. So we will use the gizmo tool and align it. Oh, gotta separate that too. I just don't want it poking into the foot. Now I can merge them all together, I think. I'll save just in case the thing crashes. So I was saying before, comic conventions. I've got the SC Comic Con coming up in about 3 weeks in Greenville, South Carolina. And then I've got Heroes Con in June. I think it's June. It's always June. There may be a free comic book day event in May that I'll be doing. And then Baltimore Comic Con in September. Daytona Beach Comic Con in September, and then Baltimore Comic Con, and then my only gaming show of the year so far will be Gamehole Con in October. Great, I think that's what I wanted to have here. Let me put the rest of the body together here. It's our nice, weird, textured ground. Perfect. And by perfect, I mean good enough. I'm going to name ground. Make sure that there's no loose pieces here. What I do is I separate it. I delete those. What is that? Oh, there's nothing in there. What the blazes? I thought those were merged together. Whoopsie. And then I'm going to make sure it's all painted the same color so the edges aren't purple. And then I'm going to decimate this thing so it's not a million, so it's not a 100,000. Just reduce the meshing, reducing the mesh a lot. That's too much. You can see that it started to get very vector looking. And this STL will be available, I think, tomorrow to my Patreon supporters. So if you want to get this thing and print it out, head on over to Patreon. I think any level will get it. And you're also able to pick up the 3D printable version of the Prayer's Handbook as well. The STLs for that. It's 5 pieces. It's got the pages. It's got the book and the back cover and the spine, the cover, and then 2 hinges that you print. And they slide right in. Sometimes with some finagling, but they'll fit. All right, let's work on... So, we talked about the meta domain and the Prayer's Handbook, and that campaign went great. I wanted to deliver the books much sooner than I did. I just kept putting more and more stuff in them. I'm going to open that up again. It's just here. So, the end gamer, you're done. That STL is done. I'm going to bring that over. I might simplify a little bit more, maybe merge a few pieces together. I want to get the file size under 150K if I can. Not 150K. God, no. 150 megabytes. My brain is mush. Mush, I say. Spinning minis. But the response to the book has been wonderful. I can't thank you all enough. Let me show spreads. How do I do that? Nope. Try this again. There we go. So that's our cover and our title page. I feel like the title pages are a little bit like redundant sometimes, like they're not adding a lot to the book, but they definitely give me a place I can sign them when I'm at conventions and things like that. I got into the habit with Intoximancy of having this kind of little illustration that sums up the whole project. In this case, it was the magic book that has the D20 on it. And I was happy with how the logo turned out. I was really hesitant about calling it the Prayer's Handbook because it's so similar to the registered trademark of Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast with their Player's Handbook. But it's such a good title. It's so appropriate. So I built in that subhead, the Prayer's Handbook, the Metadomain Cleric, to really separate it from simply the Player's Handbook. We got our legalese and a little bit of credits on the inside front cover. No AI. I'm sorry, page 2, and then we've got our welcome letter. And I wanted to have, even though there's not a piece of art on every page, I would love there to be art on every page. I tried to add more decoration in spaces where there was room. But there's just so much content in this book that it just didn't allow for more art. There was a couple of spells that were cut just because I didn't have room to put them in here. One was the idea that the spell was about you conjure a 5-foot disc beneath you and can fly on it. It's like a level 2 fly. Because at level 3 you can cast the fly spell. Many mages can cast that. But I thought if there was like a Tensor's floating disc, but whatever this platform most minis are on, it's a 5-foot disc, and you just basically turning that disc that's on every table connected to the feet of every character, making that a real thing. That it would give you a flying speed, but it would also lock your feet in place on the disc, so it would give you disadvantage on dexterity, ability checks, and saving throws because you can't move too well because your feet are locked in place. But that just didn't fit. It ran out of room. So even though there's not a piece of artwork on every page, I want to make sure, at least in the print book, there's art on every spread. So you've got the 2 pages in front of you. There's a big piece of artwork as best I can handle it. And also try to make everything fit. Like the idea that each one of these domain features, I didn't want to wrap them onto a second column if I can avoid it. And it just took a lot. Also what I wanted to do is add captions that added character and not just was a descriptor. If I can make it happen. Again, just as much art as I could fit in here. Thinking about, well, no, this had to be the spiritual reference document. That amulet kind of feels like, there's a few illustrations like that in Intoximancy, where it kind of feels like this isn't really related to the image, to what that page is about. It's just pure decoration. So that's what that medallion is. It's okay. It's not a home run. This guy I love. This dragon man. These dice I'm going to use in every book if I can get them in there. Epiphanies. There was no room. There was just no room for artwork here. It's so much text. Each level, as your character levels up, as your cleric levels up, there are fun things that you can maybe find a way to add to what you think and what the character thinks, and maybe liven things up for the other players at the table. Magic spells. I was able to, in Intoximancy, there's like Melvin's flying furnishings and the cheers spell, the cheers cantrip. And so there's a hand holding a slender goblet, like a slender flagon, and cheer, basically toasting. I didn't really have. The only one of these that I thought I could do would be power word no, and it would be a hand like a kind of a violent like no, because I really feel like this is a kind of like the tense scene in the movie where something terrible is about to happen and no stops it. I did reuse the artwork from the cover. I've done that in every book so far. I think I found a way to get one more to recontextualize the cover art a little bit. In this case, that was the spiritual decahedron spell being cast, and you can see the necklace that's around the cleric's neck. That was what I like about that illustration. Even though it's not a home run, it really is their symbol. So kind of their religious symbol. And again, this page, double page spread's got some nice artwork on it. I broke things up. Sometimes I've got the art running down the side. Sometimes it's across the top or bottom. I didn't want the design to be the same on every page. And again, the clerical terrors thing on a right-hand facing page as kind of a cover for the monster section of the book. And part of the idea is that these books are designed for GMs and players. This is like a player can bring this and hopefully show it to their dungeon master and go, "This is a real book. Can I play this thing?" The idea that the monster information is in here is not something you normally want your players to have. But I figure if you are a metadomain cleric, or if you're an Intoximancer, you'd be familiar with the Flagonborn. If you're a death-dealing rogue, you would be familiar with the house or the shuffling mound. In this case, these are creatures that I would think that a metadomain cleric would be aware of. Maybe not break open the book during the fight, and I was really happy with how these turned out. I really didn't think I'd be able to fit these in the book. There was so much stuff happening here. One of the tricky bits about these, the idea that they are animated objects, much like the Flagonborn, they have that anti-magic susceptibility. That is a standard thing in the SRD, in D&D for like a magical sword, animated sword, flying sword, I think it's called. The idea that you can hit it with Dispel Magic and it would just stop for a minute. So that takes up a little bit of space on every one of those pages. I kind of wish I could just consolidate or put a footnote in and point someplace to another page. And then Endgamer. Really happy with how that one turned out. Maybe my favorite illustration so far. You can see from the minis didn't have fingernails. So much of that had to be painted in. Really happy with how it turned out. And then can we be real for a moment? Yeah, really happy with how that turned out. All right, how we doing? Let's work on so the next project after this. So right now this book is going into the hands of the printers, and so hopefully very soon, hopefully in a matter of weeks, I will get the books back and they'll start shipping out. So the PDFs are out. Anyone who ordered any of the other digital books or goodies like STL files or Intoximancy or Death Dealing or any of the digital books, those will all ship out over the next few days. Again, like I said before, I didn't want every time you download a book from my web shop, it gives a little watermark to the book that says this book belongs to, and has your email address. And again, so you have it, you can share it, but you're less likely to post it elsewhere since you don't want everyone to have your email address. But you can still share it with your friends comfortably. Because of that, every time someone downloads a copy, purchases a copy, or in this case has a coupon code to download a copy, it creates a duplicate of that file on my server with the watermark on it. And so that takes up a lot of server space, and it sits on there for a little while, a matter of days, I think. If everybody downloaded all their PDFs at the same time, the server would fill up. So, and that'll be a growing problem. The more this venture grows, I'm presuming. But so as long as I parcel things out, it's another reason why I tend to distribute these things on weekends, because it's not everybody sitting there and downloading it all at the same time. Today was big, Thursday, and everybody just downloaded this stuff. So my server's being hammered. But all the work that went into this, and all the stuff that happened for this, and the T-shirts and the minis and stuff, it pushed back Nibblemancy, which is the next book. And Nibblemancy is again based on my webcomic. It's cooking and baking magic, just like Intoximancy, but for baking wizards, and not baking in the pipeweed variant sense. So I have started the sculpt for the Nibblemancer. I did a quick sketch of the Nibblemancer. Break open the sketch first. Excuse me. There you are. So this was the sketch. I think the idea is going to be dwarven character. Most of the characters I've done so far are human shaped. The rogue was, I presumed, an elf or half elf, or elven human hybrid. The idea here, I guess it could be a stout human, but it could be a dwarf. And I guess it's up to you how you print the figure. My inclination would be to have it print smaller. Like this is a dwarf. And I like the idea of the big bushy beard, because again, it's a wizard subclass. They have like a magic ladle or a magic spoon or something. There's it holding a cauldron. They've got a big oven mitt. Holding a cauldron with some sort of animated goop. A bisque is coming out of the cauldron. They have their magic tomes slung on their side there. They've got an apron and a chef's hat. A chef's hat with stars and moons and things on it. Chef's hats, by the way, super hard to draw, super hard to sculpt. I've seen some that are sculpted, and some of them kind of look like a Jiffy Pop. Some of them look like a big floppy beret. Some of them like the more classic cylindrical toque, like the Ratatouille. The kind of just, it's a column. It's basically, it might as well be a fluted column that sits on the person's head. There's not a lot of character there. So I wanted it to be the kind of fluffy, puffy hat, and then the stars and moons along the edge of it, just to give it more of a wizard flair. But I love this figure. Like, I think this turned out really well. I mean, real simple sketch, but a lot of character. And so I've started sculpting this dude. And I think I've even made the hat a little bit better than the drawing so far. I like not sculpting eyes. The Intoximancer's eyes are closed while he's drinking, and I like the idea of this one also having just the eyes closed. I think the beard's coming along really well. I like the hat. The last thing I did was kind of push it off to the side as if gravity or something was taking it. Currently in the sketch, he's very stock straight. I normally don't like that, but I do like the idea the feet are planted because the figure is strength. Like certainly for printing. I like the idea that the cape. He's not. Normally the figures I've done are moving forward in some way. There's kind of a forward gesture to the figure, whether they're stepping forward. I just think that adds so much life. Well, let's go with this guy. That just adds so much life to the pose. And but a few of them that are a bit more stock straight, like the Intoximancer, but even him, it's not just like he's standing straight. He's got the cape. The life of the cape is basically this big straight drape, but the shoulders are off. Like the shoulders are askew. And so I want to make sure that as I create this guy, when his hand is up holding that that ladle or spoon or whatever, that there's going to be there's a tilt to the head. And so I think as the head tilts, I'll go the other way for the purposes of the illustration. As the head tilts, I did it again. That the weight of the hat is the gravity is affecting the hat, and so I think that it's a chance this won't be bad. I basically left the back of this alone because as a cheat they'll have a collar, because the collar just says wizard. I mean, that doesn't really. I guess I could have it say the words wizard across the back. But this was me once again designing this in a way that I don't normally do. For the most part, I will always create a balloon animal form of the figure first. Let's figure out where everything goes before I start getting into the weeds of how the mustache curls or the stars and moons on the hat. But let me do this. I'm going to save. Okay, this is Nibblemancer 2 already. Okay. So, anyone who's watched me sculpt these things knows I save multiple iterations along the way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete anything that's hidden. Usually I keep some things as a backup, as a safety net. But in this case, I'm just going to keep going. Hey, Fod. I hope so. I hope plus baked goods are just fun to draw and picture. I mean, Critical Role had a lot of baked goods in there. Storyline, I think it was in season 2. I'm not all the way through season 1, but season 2. That why am I drawing a blank? Laura Bailey's character. She had a lot of there was always like scones and treats and things like that. And I definitely, during the pandemic, I started doing a lot of baking, and so there's a lot of easy humor. At the same time, the idea of creating buffs. I think one of the coolest things about this subclass will be that if you multi-class at all, it will unlock a recipe that complements the other class. So if you're a level 5 Nibblemancer wizard and you put one level into fighter or one level into warlock, that will unlock a recipe just for that combination of character. I think that's neat. I don't know any. I don't know about that kind of like anything geared specifically for a multiclasser. And then I'm going to create a kind of a neutral catch-all one because artificers are not in the SRD, and neither are I don't know anything you'd pull out of any third-party product. I think there's a alchemist class that the dungeon dudes cooked up, or if you're a blade, not a blade singer, but what is the whatever Percy was in season 1 of Critical Role, Blood Hunter. Blade taco. If you're a blade taco, then there would be like another. But it's exactly Moose. That's exactly what it is. It's going to be like a bunch of recipes that are just geared toward that. Now there have been amazing food RPG books. My favorite is the one. I'm going to show it right now. Do I mind? Do I care? Spinning Minis. I must have it. I must have it on this computer. I'm going to save our Nibblemancer. We got time. I've talked about this before. This was insane. There was a marketing firm that pitched Wendy's on producing a D&D book. I think it's 5e, or this might be its whole. It actually might be its own system. It is its own system. The artwork is astounding, I think. Had they made it nowadays, it would probably be just littered with AI work. But as it is, this is fantastic. It's all Wendy's themed, food themed stuff. The fight against frozen beef. I don't know how the marketing firm convinced Wendy's that this would be a good idea. Don't know how. They won awards for it because I think they're just submitting this to any awards jury. They're going to be like, what? What? This is amazing. Just the audacity. And they gave away, allegedly, I've never seen a copy on eBay, hardcover books, Feast of Legends, at like New York Comic Con. But it is beautifully designed. It's real. It uses essentially SRD type rules. It's got to explain battles, turns, attacks, feast mode. But this stuff, once we get to the order of the chicken, which there's going to be an ability, of course, in Nibblemancy called Chef's Kiss. But this book, Chef's Kiss, order of the beef, order of the sides, astounding that anyone would do this. So this also led to one of the funniest things in Critical Role history, where funny for me, funny for outsiders, not for them, because Wendy's reached out to them and this is for the DM or the GM. The adventure. I was gonna see if there's any more of these monsters and stuff. Yeah, that looks great. That's a fine map. Absolutely fine map. It's astounding how large this book is, how serious this and playable this is, to the point where they paid Critical Role as a sponsor for them to play this game one night. So Critical Role stream, everyone tunes in, and here are the cast of Critical Role playing a character in the order of the fries and the order of the beef. And by the way, shout outs to the illustrator and the map creator. If every company were that cool. So Critical Role played the game. they seem to be in pain while they're doing it. Like Matt, I think Sam Riegel was the dungeon master, was the game master, whatever the analog is inside the Wendy's role-playing game. So Sam Riegel's, so he's loving it. I guess that's the wrong brand. He's enjoying himself, and every time these puns came up, Mercer just looked like he was losing health. Not the character, the person. It's like it hurt him to be playing this game. And the fans reacted so badly to this clear selling out, the most obvious selling out, that Critical Role took the video down. And every once in a while, you might be able to find one on YouTube now. It's not part of Critical Role's website or part of their channel. Somebody else, people keep uploading it. It's actually entertaining to watch, not just for the game and how the improvisation happens within this system, but how much it hurts Matt in a way it doesn't hurt him. It doesn't hurt him. It's more like, oh. The guy who spends so much time creating a real fantasy world, a genuine feeling fantasy world, authenticity, and caring about character, and then the order of the beef. Yeah, fun. It's amazing. It's amazing. There is somebody who sells printed copies of this from whatever print on demand, like a Lulu or somebody like that. So if you wanted to get a copy of the book for your shelf, it's available. But it's not I don't think it's the New York Comic Con edition. So, very funny. It's insane. Okay, so how much time we got? We got half an hour. I'm feeling very good. I missed everybody. Thank you all for being here. We've had I don't know, not quite 10 people here the whole time, but it's nice. I'm so glad you're here. If anyone did pick up a copy of, or got their copy of the Metadomain Cleric or Telemon, if anyone got their copy of the Prayers Handbook today and had any questions about it, please don't hesitate to ask. I hope to be back next week, Tuesday and Thursday again. We don't know yet. My +1 has had car problems, and so I've been the chauffeur for the last few weeks. And so I am I like the laser sight in this water bottle. As a chauffeur, I have been not available, or just been running around town all the time. So, all right. So I'm gonna use these spheres to kind of create the basic shape of the torso, the body, get the belly and the legs in place, and just get enough basic shapes, and then we'll flesh them all out. I'll be grabbing mine either tonight or tomorrow morning. Oh, that's awesome. Fun, isn't it? Mine just doesn't dry, period. Yeah. That's rough. Oh wait, I thought mine was gonna be the car. Mine was your +1. Oh. I've known some people like that who just like my buddy Bat and Lash, the cartoonist Bat and Lash. Gone too soon. He never drove. He grew up in New York, and so the car thing just was never part of his life. So I get that. Tell you what, let me move all these into an object. I hate doing that sometimes, but let's hide it. The reason I don't like necessarily grouping, well, let's clone the sphere instead of going through the hoops of remeshing it one every time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the face. Oh, I'm sorry. The reason I don't like grouping them sometimes is sometimes the geometry of them, the kind of axes of them, can get lost. Or I start rotating the whole group, or I do any kind of modification of the group, and it applies to all the things on the inside of it, and it can inherit some weirdness. So I try to avoid that when I can, but it is nice to just group things, at least for the moment, so I can hide them all and I can build the shapes, the rough shapes of the figure. But I'm really happy with this face, so I'm not going to give that up. But not driving is tough. I'm in an area that is not walkable at all, sadly. David. Let's see if you're welcome to join us. Oh, that's nice. See me wandering off the cry. I'm driving. I'm driving. By +1 is not. Her car is dead. And so I have been chauffeur for the last few weeks. And so we started talking about cars, and Telemutt was saying that his +1 doesn't drive. And so yeah, it's a shame. It's just such a hassle. Can't I just live indoors and have everything not break, just so I can be left alone to work on my nonsense? But the karate's been a lot of fun. I like that it's very procedural. That there's a that there are steps associated with it. I did a lot of, like I mentioned before, I did some Tai Chi, all based on YouTube videos at the beginning of the pandemic, and I just like that there's there's rights and wrong ways to do things, and then there's a tournament coming up in less than a month now, maybe a month and a half, and I'm a white belt, which is the lowest of the low ranks, and I'm like, oh, I'm signing up. And so I was in the class, and the teacher was like, okay, well, they said, well, he was encouraging everyone to sign up. And I'm like, well, I'm going to sign up. Technically, I would be included in everyone. And, but what is a white belt going to do at a tournament? Forms? Sparring? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And so then it was like, now my excuse for everything is, well, I got a tournament in 2 weeks. So I'm convincing them to let us learn forms well beyond our rank, just because there's a tournament. I'm just waiting for my car to die. Oh, even having just another person for the dogs to bounce me, right? Oh, the pets. It wasn't that big of a... Oof! I had a limb fall on my car as I was driving. When did that happen? That's terrifying. A limb. How fast were you? 3 days ago. How fast were you moving? What kind of speed were you traveling? Was it like a specifically windy or rainy condition or something like that? Or that's you're ready to move to Florida, it sounds like. That's terrifying. I'm going to join those together and flip them. World, flip object, and separate. And I will reset the... What the? Fascinating. So today is pie day. I'm assuming everyone's going to have some pie. And if you're not going to get some pie, you should definitely get some pie. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing great. Just got done eating dinner for dinner. Gonna have soup. Yeah, I've been trying to eat healthy just because I wake up minding my own business, not harming anybody. I wake up Saturday morning, put on a karate uniform, which I think is cultural appropriation. So I guess I get what's coming to me. And then they make me do jumping jacks. Monsters. So I'm like, I just want to lose weight just so I don't hate jumping jacks. And not just lose weight. I just want to get. I don't think I've done cardio. I ran a marathon in. Had to be like 2007, maybe. And that was it. Then I stopped, and I haven't, and I swore off moving ever again. And I think I was right to do so. And so now, exercise is catching up with me. I think if I had a dog, I would actually do some exercise every once in a while. At least walking the dog or being dragged by the dog would be something. It feels irresponsible for me to make my cats any fatter just so I have heavier things to lift. That feels like that feels wrong. Not sure why. But there's a great produce place by me. Not a lot of great stuff around where I'm at, but that produce place is just terrific. And they had peach pie, so I got that for Pie Day. I will use any excuse at this point to have dessert. The day after that karate tournament, I'm gonna have most of a large pizza. You think the dog inspires exercise? Better than if they made you do jumping Jackie jump. And then sit-ups. No, that's not If I'm sitting, I've succeeded at sitting. That's a victory position. Is it? Why would you? Or then you lay down, like boom, you're there. That's it. That's all I wanted out of life. And now you got to sit up, bastards. Large dog owners. I'm so tired of going from couch chair to door. I missed you guys. So this arm, I'm gonna have to scale all these things down a little bit. I think the arm should be skinny. I like the shape I have there in the figure. The arms are way too big. My worry is that once I put the face back in, I'm so happy with how this face is. It's my mistake for building the face first. I think it'll be fine, just because the beard will forgive a lot. And then the apron. But got some notes over here on the... Oh, some kind notes over on Kickstarter. That's very nice. Thanks, everybody. So I was saying before, a real pain in the butt is that MailerLite stopped talking with WooCommerce. So just as I'm shipping all these things out and delivering all these books through WooCommerce, the new plugin for MailerLite decided to screw up. Because one of the things I like when I'm shipping out my books, my digital books, the ones that do the watermarking, it's all done on my own site, on my own server. During the checkout process, there's a question, do you want to be added to the mailing list? And so that question went away. So it's superfluous. It's basically one last chance to get that email address from folks. Because during my the Backer Kit survey, I asked people if they want to be on the mailing list. So if people want to be on the mailing list, they've already had the opportunity. There's plenty of opportunities. Anyone who's backed me in the past will get a notification when I launch my next Kickstarter. So it's not like I won't have another chance to talk to these people. But it's a pain in the butt that service was not active. It's better than the inverse, which would be if everyone was signed up. Like if everyone who downloaded the book suddenly got put on the mailing list, I would hate that, because then my mailing list would be poisoned. I don't want to send a note to someone who doesn't want it. But it's always something. Always something. I'm certain the phrase "it's always something" in Latin would be my family crest. Last night on Pencil to Pencil, we were talking about the challenges. It's called the Sacrifice episode. The guys cooked up that title. I was thinking about it in terms of at what cost to try to have a creative career. And it's easy to complain, as everyone does, and oh, boo-hoo, you've got a creative career. So much of this stuff is just never ending. Oopsie. I don't think people need to know how to do WooCommerce or build their own website. It sure helps sometimes, though. But other times it's like I'd rather be drawing, or here I am feeling really good about delivering the book to everybody, and then suddenly things stop working. But next week's episode will be a pencil will be Larry Stroman, the guys from Tribe, the Tribe comic from the 90s, are coming back. I've got my copy over there somewhere. I never asked the backers if they wanted a hug though. See, that feels wrong. That feels weird. That feels weird. That feels weird. I respect boundaries. Someone asked about, they were hoping that my next subclass was going to be a martial class. Like they want me to do a fighter or a ranger or something like that. I'd love to do that. I have an idea for a ranger. I have an idea for a druid subclass, which might be next after Nimblemancy. In terms of Kickstarters, this next one, Nimblemancy, is going to be interesting. Boy, this figure's all goofy. The head is too big for the body. In my sketch there, the head is much smaller than the torso, so I have to shrink the whole thing down. We'll get there. We'll get there. Let's hide this for now. We put that back where it was. We'll hide it. Yeah, I think skinnier arms. I think I got caught up with the sketch there. Let's But I think, on that note, let me bring up, not Wendy's Feast of Legends, but the Prayer's Handbook. Thank you all so much. Again, thank you everyone who backed the Kickstarter campaign. If you have not yet, poor Wendy's, they tried. They did a great job. That book is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And had they done it at a time of Kickstarter, they probably could have raised a lot of money. Ridiculously. You know, there's Arby's dice. The Arby's decided to make a set of D&D dice, and for some reason they were on the website. They're like clear plastic, but have little Arby's cowboy hats inside inside the acrylic, and they were snapped up instantly and put on eBay. And then Arby's did it again, and they were snapped up and put on eBay. So it's ridiculous. Ridiculous. At some point, tell them I would want it. Because I think if I was sitting down at a table playing D&D with everybody else, that's the dice I'd want to roll. Because it's stupid. Because it's dumb. They're fine dice. I'm sure they're absolutely fine dice, but they're idiotic. Abby's dice. But thanks to everyone who supported the Kickstarter. That's amazing. So the orders, the books will be placed. The minis are here. I'm looking at boxes of them. I'm waiting on the T-shirts. Stickers are in. I got packages. The only thing I'm really missing is more bubble wrap. I got boxes. Might have to order more zine mailers. I gotta double check the numbers of that. If you haven't filled out your backer survey, please do. I think there's only like a few dozen stragglers at this point. But especially if you ordered a T-shirt, because that's the main thing. I've pinged 2 people who had T-shirt orders, and they didn't tell me what size. So I'm kind of lost there. I'm going to order like 1 extra of each size, but I'm not over ordering these. These are not, I don't want to stock these things. They're being made for the backers. I want to have 1 maybe 2 extra of each size, just in case something gets lost in the mail. Forex. Those are the most expensive. Even finding a vendor who will do the larger sizes to do small and 3X is tough. Killing Forex. And that also costs. It weighs so much too. A medium shirt weighs so little compared to a 4. Like the 4X shirt is like 8, weighs as much as 8 shirts. You're mailing a blanket. Right. It's like I want one for my car. So the next one will be Nibblemancy. It might be a more complicated campaign in that might be 2 books. It might be Nibblemancy and the very first Plots Devices book as well. So it might be 2 zines. If you've been checking out my Patreon, if you go to Patreon, patreon.com/Steve Conley, there are free magic items there you can download. But I want to collect them in a book. Have I considered blankets? No sizing. That's a nice idea. No, I have not. I have not thought of blankets. I have not thought of blankets. Just weighted blankets, just to feel something. Massage blankets. But I have thought of aprons. Oh, Nibblemancy. I need to stop. And it's not. I'm not a merch shop. I'm making books. Books that I can make lots of. But I was thinking the printable STL files of flagons. I've seen somewhere you can put you size it perfectly, and I built a mock-up. It had no detail to it. It was just purely like the balloon animal version of the figure, where it was just like a cylinder where a Coke can or a soda can would fit perfectly into it, so you could hold the soda inside this ornate flagon, like the ones right out of like the hobgoblet. The tankard wouldn't work because it's sideways, but the hobgoblet and Melvin's flagon, the one that has the dragon coiled around the cup, that was one of the first things I sculpted, and so it's the dragon scales are all goofy looking. I would want to remake them, but yeah, more things to do. Thunder Duvet +5 Thunder Duvet. But thank you all so much. If you missed getting your hands on the Prayers Handbook, you can go to prayershandbook.com, go to steveconley.com's website, and go to the shop there. You'll find it. And the zine and the hardcover are available from pre-order. The minis are in stock now. What else? Oh, and they'll be available on Drive-Thru RPG soon. When is Larry Stroman on Pencil to Pencil? This coming Wednesday. And Jamar's lined up some other great guests. I need to do more. I need to bring some other guests in. But all right, you lovely people. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the warm reception back. And David, I may see you later. Depending on that. When I log off here, I'm gonna run some errands. But thank you all so much. Have a lovely night. I'm not sure if we know anybody's rating. I don't even have my browser open to find somebody who might be online. But I think we're just going to call it there. Have a lovely night, and I'll see you next week. I'm not sure what days I'll be streaming. Follow me on the Discord, and I'll tell everybody. But have a good night.